Today, we're looking at Private Reserve's Ebony Purple. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Private Reserve's Ebony Purple is a purple ink, and to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into a different pen for a day. I then put it into a Lamy All-Star with a 1.1 stub to take my notes for this video. Now, before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we get is this nice green across the bottom. It's a darker, it's a more permanent looking green on the bottom, and the light green pushes up. We start to see some of the magentas, blues, and then the purple comes in at the top. There's a lot to see with this chromatography. Now, the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. That green along the bottom, much darker, much thicker, really looks like it's got some hold on. In fact, not a lot of it pushes up. It's very light as it pushes up, and then it goes almost straight into some of the purple at the top. We don't really see some of the blues the same as we did with the original chromatography. Makes me feel like there might be some permanence with this one. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard this ink might be to clean from your pens. Now, I let that smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, it seems to perform pretty well. Yes, it does spread out some and becomes much thicker a line, but I can still read with no problem everything that's written there, which makes me not afraid to use this ink in a note-taking situation. Looking at the water, I put a drop of water down for 30 seconds and immediately just sopped it up. I don't scrub it off. And what we see is while it reactivates and pulls off some of the darkest areas, the greens that were at the bottom, still there, still holding on, not budging at all. Pen flush does very much the same thing. Let me back this all up, start over. Looking at the highlighter, we see that this does spread out. It does not become illegible, which makes me feel confident in a note-taking situation to use this if I did have to go back and highlight, because I don't feel like I'm going to lose what I wrote. Water completely reactivates and pulls up all of the darkest parts of the ink, but leaves that green behind. That green that's left is completely intact. Now, pen flush does the same thing water does. Nothing extra gets pulled up. And that's kind of a warning symbol to me that if I'm going to try this in a more expensive pen, I need to have experienced some inexpensive pens to know that I'm not going to stain anything, or it's not going to be too hard to get out. Bleach is really removing it from the page. It's leaving a little bit of yellow staining behind, but bleach is, as expected, obliterating it. I am hoping that it would take nothing more than pen flush to get this out of your pen, but experiment before you put this into your Pelikan M1000. That's all I'm saying. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Private Reserve's Ebony Purple has a viscosity of 2.58. Very normal, almost exactly average, just a little bit higher. To find my dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper with the extra fine and medium nib. I average all 6 of those times. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being 13 to 21 seconds. Private Reserve's Ebony Purple has a dry time of 16 seconds, which makes it very normal. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at that Clairefontaine, shall we? We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. It does show us some color variation. It's this nice, dark, rich purple that goes to black. This is great. This is really a great ink right here. It does a lot of nice shading throughout its writing, and you get to see the purple. The extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Yes, it is showing us color variation. No, it is not on camera, but it is to me in person. The brown shows it. It's much darker on the B and gets darker, and so it goes from that black into the purple. It is truly fantastic. The jumps goes in the opposite order. It starts in the purple and works its way to the black. Very nice. 9 seconds to dry. Medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Yes, we get some shading here. Not as much shading. It's going down wetter, more ink, it's darker, so it's harder to spot. Ignoring the spot, I know you guys don't see it. I see the T and the O a little lighter from it, but in brown it goes from very dark to the purple to the very dark, and so it goes from the black to purple to black again. Super. The Fox, I get a black on the upstroke and downstroke, it turns to purple, and at the X it goes back to black, and I get that in a few words. This is very, very nice. 17 seconds to dry. Now the extra fine and the medium scrubby show us a little bit of color variation, and we do see a little bit of color variation in the writing itself. The smear test says I can likely recover it. Well, let's look at some Tomoe River. We have no bleeding. We do have ghosting. The 1.1, a lovely shade of purple with hints of black. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Yes, we get some really nice shading on this paper with the 1.1. The extra fine has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We lost the shading. It took 16 seconds to dry. The medium, it got much darker. It went from a purpley tone, of a dark purple here, to almost black, a super dark purple. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. Definitely a shade difference between the extra fine and the medium. 33 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby shows us no color variation in the writing. We didn't get any color variation in the writing. We did from the nibs. The smear test says you're not going to recover it if you smeared it while you were writing. So I look at the Rhodia paper. This gives us no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Again, that really nice purple to black shading. Nice. I think I said no shade right before that. If I said no shade, I meant there is shade. It's fantastic. The extra fine is a lighter tone, and we get the purple. We get no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We do get some shading where we get that nice purple to a dark purple. It doesn't turn black here. It doesn't get that close to the black. In quick, up to the K, it gets darker, noticeably darker. On brown, it starts noticeably darker and gets lighter. Very nice. 8 seconds to dry. So manageable. And I got to put this in my Lamy All-Star, the 1.1. Now, with the 1.1, on the same stroke, we get to see areas where it's the dark, almost towards black purple and purple. We see it in the downstroke of the A for All-Star. Very nice. We get to see it in the Q, where the right side of the downstroke is noticeably darker than the main part of it, but it's not a halo. So we get it really, really nice. It stands out on the 1.1. The medium, much darker, much darker. It's that purple to almost black. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shading there. 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine, and the camera is not really showing the color variation. It does show up here some little bits of it. And the medium shows us no color variation. We got no color variation. And the smear test, you could likely recover this. So I'm enjoying using the yellow Rhodia to see the color difference. Of course, the yellow Rhodia has no bleeding and no ghosting. And there's about no color variation. This is a thick ink when it goes down. It just feels thick while you're writing. So it makes the pen glide very nicely, but it is a thick ink. The 1.1 has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We do still see that very lovely purple to black shading. The extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and yes, we still see some of that nice shading going on. Starts very dark purple, a black purple, into
into the black purple. It's very nice. And when I'm saying black purple, it's because it's not black. It doesn't look black, but it looks super dark. 8 seconds to dry. Super dark once we get to the medium, almost to the point of black. Almost. It still has that kind of purple feel to it. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shading whatsoever. 13 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine shows us color variation, especially if you look far left to far right. You do see it. The medium scrubby shows us no color variation. Now that's exactly what we got in the writing samples. The smear test, you could recover this if you smeared it. So I tested this on TWSBI paper. The TWSBI paper gave us no bleeding. It did give us some light ghosting. I don't think it would be unmanageable. I use this paper as my ink journal, and I find it works very well. The 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We don't get the shading up here. It's just a dark purple. A noticeably lighter tone with the extra fine. Has no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 7 seconds to dry. Noticeably darker tone again for the medium. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, and no shade. 11 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us that we're not getting any color variation, and we didn't. But the smear test says we can likely recover it. Very nice. So I tested this with 28-pound copy paper, the premium copy paper. We do get some spots where it's wanting to bleed through. It's not bleeding through. It sank very deep into the paper. It's not bleeding through. So we have definite ghosting with the medium. Not a ton of it with the extra fine. I think the extra fine is very manageable. The 1.1 has feathering all over it. It's tiny little feathering. I don't think it's the worst in the world when we're talking about this is a work situation. I don't know that, and I said 1.1, that's a medium at the top. I don't know that the medium is the best way to go with this. I think a lot of fountain pen users are going to go to a fine or an extra fine when working with paper they don't control in the workplace. But we do get feathering with the medium. We get spread with the medium. We get no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine did spread. It doesn't have any feathering. It has no halo, no sheen, no shade. It only took 1 second to dry. The scrubby showed us we're not going to get any color variation. We didn't get any color variations. We weren't disappointed. The smear, you have no problem. I mean, the last one smeared a little bit. Again, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 smear. And so I don't give it any time. It didn't have a problem dealing with it. And that's all that I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Private Reserve's Ebony Purple, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. Now this purple reminds me of the Hanukkah sweaters my aunt would get me that were always green and purple. So I went for a really nice green for this. And I chose Robert Oster's Spearmint so that I can relive those Hanukkah green and purple sweaters again. Dreidel, 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 I made it out of clay. No. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Private Reserve's Ebony Purple? This is the standout best of their ebony inks. The color's fantastic. It's amazing to look at. While there's not a lot of shading, it does look nicer when you use it with a stub nib. This looks really good. This brings really a lot of good characteristics to it in your writing. It's got a something that makes you want to write just a little bit more. Makes you want to be a little wordy. It makes you want to go on and on and on and on and on in your writing. The ink looks great. And when you have inks that make you want to write more, that's a good thing. Thanks for watching.